The galaxy had always viewed humanity as insignificant. When the alien races gathered to form the Intergalactic Council, Earth was quickly brushed aside. They were weak, their technology outdated, and their ability to defend themselves laughable. Their ships were considered scrap metal, their weapons old-fashioned. Earth was left out of the great battles and alliances that shaped the universe. But when the war began, things took a sudden turn. The human race, once disregarded, found themselves surrounded by hostile alien forces. Warships from the four most powerful galactic empires arrived, their fleet sizes overwhelming. The Earth's military was no match for them, and humanity was losing ground fast. Amidst the chaos, the humans were offered a deal, something unexpected from their supposed allies. One of the alien factions, seeing no value in Earth's tiny forces, mocked them openly. They offered humanity a vessel. "It's all you'll need," they said with a laugh. A ship so broken, so outdated, it was practically useless. They referred to it as a floating coffin and told humanity to make do with it. The humans could hardly believe what they were hearing. This ship wasn't even functional by their standards, let alone capable of fighting off the alien fleets. The ship was old, with rust creeping over its surface. Its engines were faulty, its hull weak, and its weapons systems outdated. It was a symbol of the galaxy's contempt for the human race. Captain James Evans, a battle-hardened leader in the Earth fleet, stood in disbelief as the alien dignitaries handed over the vessel. His crew, who had fought bravely and lost much, stared in stunned silence. Some of them were angry, others just exhausted by the ongoing war. How could they be expected to defend their planet with a ship that was barely worth repairing? "This is our ship," Captain Evans muttered, his voice tinged with disbelief. The ship in front of them was a relic, barely held together by what seemed like pure luck. Yet, as he looked around at his crew, he saw something that the aliens didn't: resilience. "We can't just let them mock us," his first officer, Lieutenant Sarah Lane, said with a grim determination. "We'll fix it. We have to. This is all we have left." The rest of the crew nodded. They may have been handed a piece of junk, but their spirit had not been broken. Captain Evans knew that to survive this war, they would need to work together, and they would need to make something out of this disgraceful vessel. Days passed as the crew worked tirelessly on the ship. They worked in the cold, under constant threat of enemy attacks. They stripped away the broken parts, welded new sections, and tested whatever systems they could salvage. Despite their best efforts, the ship seemed to mock their attempts. Nothing seemed to work perfectly. The engines sputtered, the weapons fired erratically, and even the communication systems malfunctioned at the worst times. As they tried to make the ship operational, the alien fleets continued their attacks. Earth's forces had been pushed back, and it seemed like there was no hope left. News of the ship, dubbed the Iron Wraith, spread across the human fleet, and the laughter from the alien races only grew louder. They thought humanity was doomed. The ship was just another mistake in their long line of failures. But Captain Evans never lost hope. In the darkest hours, he gathered his crew and reminded them of their strength. "It doesn't matter how they see us," he said. "We have something they don't. We have the will to fight, and we'll make this ship something they never expected." With each passing day, the crew worked relentlessly. They were tired, hungry, and frustrated, but there was one thing they all shared: the desire to prove the aliens wrong. They refused to be the galaxy's joke. They refused to be weak. As the ship slowly began to take shape, a sense of purpose began to grow among the crew. They knew they had to be ready for the next attack. Even if their ship was nothing more than a shadow of the advanced alien warships they faced, they would use every ounce of strength, every scrap of tech they had, to make it work. But the question remained: would it be enough? The ship was still far from perfect. It looked like a patchwork of metal and wires. There were still many unknowns. Would their hard work pay off? Or would this ship truly be the coffin the aliens predicted? The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the humans would not back down. They would take this so-called junk ship and they would turn it into something the galaxy had never seen before. They would show the aliens that humans were not to be underestimated, that they had the heart and determination to overcome anything, even mockery, failure, and betrayal. Captain Evans knew they had one chance. The human fleet's survival depended on it. But no matter what, this junk ship would be humanity's symbol. Not of weakness, not of defeat, but of strength, resilience, and the will to fight back. As the final repairs were made and the ship prepared for its first mission, Evans looked out at the ship with a steady resolve. Let's show them what this ship can really do. The humans may have been given a worthless vessel, but they had a powerful weapon now, their spirit. And the galaxy would soon find out that underestimating humanity was their biggest mistake. The days following the initial repairs on the Iron Wraith were filled with tense anticipation. The crew knew that their time was running out, and the alien fleets wouldn't wait for them to get fully prepared. In fact, every moment the ship remained in the dock was another moment the humans risked total destruction. Captain Evans stood on the bridge, staring at the looming star outside the viewports. The battle was coming. He could feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. The fate of humanity rested on his decision. The Iron Wraith had been patched together, and though it wasn't a masterpiece by any means, it was now capable of flying. But the real question remained, would it be able to fight? "Captain, all systems are online," Lieutenant Sarah Lane reported, her voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. "Weapons are armed, shields are at 75%, and the engines are holding steady." Evans nodded, trying to suppress his nerves. "Good. Let's take her out for a test run. We need to see what this ship can really do." The ship's engines hummed to life as the Iron Wraith slowly pulled away from its makeshift dock. It was a strange sight, this old, patched-together vessel now creeping through the star-filled expanse. Even in the vastness of space, it felt fragile, like a bird struggling to find its wings. The crew was silent, knowing that this was a make-or-break moment. One wrong move, one mistake, and their last hope could be destroyed. "Distance to enemy fleet?" Captain Evans asked. 10 minutes, sir," Lieutenant Lane replied, her eyes glued to the sensors. "The alien fleet is on course. They don't know we're coming yet." The tension on the bridge was palpable. Evans' mind raced, imagining the worst-case scenario. He had seen this before, humans relying on outdated equipment only to be crushed by superior technology. The Iron Wraith was no different. The crew had barely gotten the engines working properly. The shields were weak. The weapons, though functional, were nowhere near as powerful as the enemy's. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Evans ordered. "We need to outsmart them. They may have the numbers, but we have the element of surprise." As the ship moved deeper into space, the silence was broken only by the hum of the engines and the occasional beep from the sensors. The crew was on edge, aware that they were about to face a fight they may not be able to win. The enemy ships were approaching fast. Evans could see the silhouettes of the alien warships taking shape in the distance. They were massive, sleek, and deadly. Even from this far away, their presence was intimidating. "Sir, they're locking onto us," Lieutenant Lane announced, her fingers flying over the controls. "They're preparing to fire." Evans clenched his fists, his eyes narrowing. "Brace for impact." The first blast hit the Iron Wraith with the force of a thunderstorm. The ship shook violently as the shields flickered under the onslaught. The hum of the engines grew louder as the crew scrambled to stay steady. Sparks flew across the bridge, and the lights flickered. "We've lost 25% of our shield strength," Sarah yelled. "Hull integrity is holding, but not for long." "Return fire," Evans commanded. "Target their lidship." The crew worked frantically, managing to fire the ship's outdated plasma cannons. The blast hit one of the alien ships, causing a small explosion, but it didn't even dent their shields. The enemy ship didn't flinch. The Iron Wraith was no match for the alien weapons, but Evans wasn't about to give up. Reinforce the shields. We need more power. Despite their best efforts, the ship was still being hammered. The humans were holding on by a thread, but it was clear they were outmatched. Captain Evans realized something. The battle was slipping through their fingers. This wouldn't work. They needed to outsmart the enemy, not face them head-on. Prepare to engage evasive maneuvers, he barked. We need to draw them into the asteroid field. Use the environment to our advantage. As the crew worked to execute his orders, Evans watched the enemy ships draw closer. They were big, powerful, and relentless. If the humans were going to survive this fight, they needed something more than sheer force. They needed strategy. The Iron Wraith sped toward a dense asteroid field, its hull groaning under the strain. The crew held their breath as the ship dodged massive asteroids, narrowly missing collisions. The alien ships, slow and bulky, struggled to follow. The humans weren't trying to fight anymore. They were trying to survive. Almost there, Lieutenant Lane shouted. The asteroid field is ahead. With a sharp turn, the Iron Wraith plunged into the field, sending waves of asteroids scattering in every direction. The enemy ships hesitated, not used to fighting in such an unpredictable environment. Evans knew this was their only chance. Fire on the asteroids ahead. Use them as cover. The crew fired the cannons at the asteroids, sending chunks of rock flying in every direction. Some of the debris hit the enemy ships, causing small explosions, but not enough to take them down. However, it was enough to create chaos. The enemy ships were no longer attacking with the same confidence. They were struggling to navigate through the asteroid field, their firepower scattered and disorganized. Good work, Evans shouted. Keep them off balance. As the humans maneuvered through the field, they continued to fire, taking advantage of the confusion. The Iron Wraith wasn't just a ship now. It was a symbol of their ingenuity, their refusal to give up. For the first time in this battle, Evans allowed himself a small smile. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were fighting back. The battle was not over. In fact, it was only just beginning. As the Iron Wraith danced through the asteroid field, the alien ships were growing more frustrated. Their powerful weaponry was being rendered useless against the unpredictable terrain, and their formations began to splinter. They could no longer press the attack with the same overwhelming strength they had started with. But they weren't done. Not yet. Captain Evans knew the window of opportunity was closing fast. He had seen enough to understand one crucial thing. The Iron Wraith might be weaker in terms of raw power, but it had one advantage: the human mind. Their creativity, their ability to improvise, was something the aliens had underestimated. It was the key to turning the tide of this battle. Lieutenant Lane, do we have any remaining torpedoes? Evans asked, his voice steady but filled with urgency. Just a few, she replied, fingers flying over her console. But they're old, Captain. I'm not sure how effective they'll be against their shields. We have to make them count, Evans said, his jaw set. Target their flagship. The human ship had already proven its resilience by surviving in the asteroid field, but Evans knew that to truly win this battle, they would need to take down the leader, the flagship. If they could destroy that ship, the rest of the alien fleet might scatter in disarray. Evans' plan was simple: surprise and deception. He would lead the aliens into thinking the Iron Wraith was weaker than it really was, and when they were close enough, he would hit them with everything they had. But it wasn't just about power. It was about exploiting the one advantage they had: unpredictability. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Evans ordered again. We'll lure them in closer. As the Iron Wraith continued to weave in and out of the asteroid field, the alien ships pursued, slowly but surely closing the distance. Evans gritted his teeth. He could see the lead ship, their flagship, was moving directly into their sights. The aliens, confident in their overwhelming superiority, were no longer paying attention to the surrounding dangers. Captain, we're in position. Lieutenant Lane called out, her voice sharp with focus. "The flagship is directly in range. All systems are locked." "Then fire everything we've got," Evans shouted. The Iron Wraith unleashed a barrage of torpedoes, the old weapons whistling through space. The few remaining plasma cannons fired in rapid succession, streaking toward the enemy fleet. The first torpedo hit the flagship's shields with a powerful explosion that rattled the entire ship. The alien flagship staggered slightly, but its shields held strong. The aliens quickly returned fire, but the Iron Wraith was already dodging, weaving through the asteroid debris like a predator in the night. The alien ships, however, were not so nimble. They were slow and clumsy in comparison to the smaller, more agile human ship. Direct hit to the flagship's port side. Lieutenant Lane cried, "Shields are weakening." Evans didn't let up. He knew they couldn't afford to give the aliens time to recover. "Full speed ahead. We've got one shot at this." The Iron Wraith surged forward, its engines roaring to life as it broke free of the asteroid field. The alien ships, caught off guard by the sudden burst of speed, scrambled to follow. But they were too late. Evans took a deep breath. He knew what needed to be done next. Target their flagship again, now. Full power to the torpedoes. Lieutenant Lane's hands moved swiftly across the controls. A series of torpedoes locked onto the alien flagship. One after another, they launched with deadly precision. The first torpedo collided with the flagship's weakened shield and sent shockwaves through its hull. The second one ripped straight through the weakened armor, exposing the heart of the ship. But it wasn't over. The final torpedo, the most powerful of all, flew toward the alien flagship. Evans watched through the viewport as it closed in. Time seemed to slow as the torpedo made contact with the flagship's core. The resulting explosion was massive, shaking the entire sector of space as the alien flagship was obliterated in a fiery inferno. The human crew watched in stunned silence. The flagship, the heart of the alien fleet, had been destroyed. It was a moment of triumph, but Evans knew that the battle was far from over. The alien ships, though momentarily stunned, would regroup. But the Iron Wraith had shown them something that no one had ever anticipated. Humans were not to be underestimated. "We did it, Captain," Lieutenant Lane shouted, her voice filled with excitement and disbelief. "The flagship's gone." Evans exhaled slowly, his heart still racing. "That's only the beginning. The rest of the fleet will be next." The humans had won the first round, but the battle for survival was far from over. The Iron Wraith was now a symbol of humanity's tenacity. It had been built from scraps, laughed at by the very enemies it had just struck down. But now it had proven its worth, and the universe would soon learn that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The remnants of the alien flagship floated in space, its debris scattering across the once pristine battlefield like the broken bones of a fallen titan. For a brief moment, the crew of the Iron Wraith could only watch in disbelief as the fires from the explosion flickered out. The massive ship that had once led the alien forces was gone, reduced to nothing more than space junk. But Captain Evans knew better than to celebrate too soon. The alien fleet, though shaken, wasn't about to retreat. They would come for the Iron Wraith with a vengeance, and the remaining ships in their fleet would be furious at the loss of their commander. The Iron Wraith was now the target of their unrelenting wrath. "Captain, we've got incoming," Lieutenant Lane shouted, her eyes wide as she checked the scanners. "2 more enemy ships are closing in fast. They're not giving us a chance to breathe." Evans' heart raced, but his face remained calm. The victory over the flagship was a monumental one, but it wasn't enough to end the battle. Humanity's enemies would fight harder than ever now. "All crew, brace yourselves. We need to outmaneuver them. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, maximum power to the shields." The Iron Wraith surged forward, dodging blasts from the enemy ships, which had quickly regrouped after the destruction of their flagship. They were now angry, more determined to crush the humans who had dared to destroy their pride. The alien ships were faster, more powerful, far more advanced in terms of weaponry and armor. But there was something they hadn't counted on: the human spirit. Engage the secondary weapon system, Evans ordered, his voice filled with urgency. He knew the aliens would not stop until they had destroyed every last trace of the Iron Wraith. What secondary weapon system? Lane asked, her brow furrowing in confusion. Evans didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared at the rapidly approaching enemy ships, calculating every move. Then, with a sudden flash of inspiration, he knew what needed to be done. The Iron Wraith wasn't built to be a standard warship. It's a scrapped vessel, made from leftover technology. But there's one thing it's got that the enemy doesn't expect: unpredictability. It's got the old warp drives that the aliens never even noticed. "Captain," Lieutenant Lane said, her voice tense, "are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we hit them hard where they won't see it coming," Evans interrupted. "Activate the experimental hyperjump system. Now." Lane's fingers flew across the console, and within seconds, the system whirred to life. The Iron Wraith, using the warp drives from a forgotten era, initiated a sudden burst of speed that threw the alien ships off course. They could no longer target the human vessel as it zipped around them, moving faster than they had thought possible. "What the hell just happened?" one of the alien commanders said, watching helplessly as the Iron Wraith disappeared from their sight, only to reappear in a completely different spot. It was a maneuver they had never encountered, one that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. The Iron Wraith reappeared just behind one of the alien ships, and in a flash, the ship opened fire. The plasma cannons blazed, streaking through space and slamming into the alien vessel's rear. The force of the blasts tore through the ship's defenses, its shields flickering as the shots pierced its hull. "We've got them. Captain, their shields are down," Lieutenant Lane shouted, her voice filled with triumph. But Evans knew they couldn't stop now. They had the advantage, but it was only temporary. "Keep firing. Don't let up until they're gone." As the alien ship began to disintegrate under the relentless assault, its final moments were marked by an explosion so intense it sent shockwaves through the surrounding area. But the humans weren't finished yet. The Iron Wraith had already reappeared and was moving toward the second enemy ship with incredible speed. "Race for impact. They're targeting us again," Lane shouted, panic creeping into her voice. Evans' eyes narrowed. He could see the second alien ship beginning its attack, but there was something different about its movements. It wasn't like the first ship. It wasn't acting out of blind rage. It was calculating, cold, and precise. It had learned from its previous encounter with the Iron Wraith. "Initiate evasive maneuvers," Evans barked. The Iron Wraith jerked left, then right, twisting and turning through the wreckage of the battlefield, avoiding incoming shots as it fired back with all its might. But this time, the alien ship was prepared. It seemed to be anticipating every move the humans made. "Captain, we're running low on energy," Lane cried. "We can't keep this up much longer." Evans clenched his fists, frustration bubbling within him. The Iron Wraith had taken down one ship, but now, the last enemy vessel remained. If they didn't destroy it soon, they would be sitting ducks for its weapons. Then it hit him. Another risky move. "All power to the forward thrusters," Evans ordered. "Push the engines to their limits." The crew stared at him in disbelief. The Iron Wraith was already strained to its breaking point, but Evans knew that this was their only chance. They had to give it everything they had. The Iron Wraith surged forward, faster than it had ever gone before. The alien ship, taken by surprise, couldn't react in time. The Iron Wraith slammed into its side with full force, sending the enemy vessel careening into a nearby asteroid. The collision sent a cascade of explosions across the alien ship's hull, tearing it apart. The Iron Wraith had done the impossible. It had destroyed not one, but two enemy ships. And in doing so, it had proven that humans, no matter the odds, were a force to be reckoned with. But Captain Evans knew the war wasn't over. They had won this battle, But the galaxy had just seen the true power of humanity, and there was no turning back now. As the second enemy ship disintegrated in a fiery explosion, the Iron Wraith drifted slowly through the wreckage of the battlefield. Captain Evans stood tall, his eyes fixed on the destruction around him. Despite the victory, he couldn't shake the weight of what was to come. The battle was far from over, and the alien fleet was vast. The Iron Wraith, once a laughingstock, now the most powerful ship in the galaxy, was far from invincible. "We've done it, Captain," Lieutenant Lane said, her voice filled with awe. "We've taken down 2 of their ships. They didn't even know what hit them." Evans nodded, though his expression remained grim. "Yes, but this is just the beginning. We've taken down 2 ships, but there are hundreds more out there, and they will come for us with everything they've got. We have to be ready." "Captain," a voice crackled over the comms. It was Lieutenant Harris, the officer in charge of intelligence. "We've detected a massive fleet inbound. It's a full-scale retaliation force. They're angry, and they're bringing everything they've got." Evans' jaw tightened. The aliens had underestimated humanity, but now they were about to face the consequences of their mistake. The Iron Wraith had proven itself, but the real challenge was yet to come. The enemy fleet would come at them with everything they had, and they would not stop until the Iron Wraith was nothing but debris floating in space. "How long until they arrive?" Evans asked, his voice calm but heavy with the knowledge that this fight would test the limits of human endurance. "Less than 2 hours, Harris replied. "They're coming in fast, and they know exactly where we are. We don't have the luxury of time." "Understood. Prep all weapons systems. We need to make sure the Iron Wraith is in top condition," Evans ordered. The crew worked quickly, rushing to their stations as the ship was reloaded with fresh munitions and its engines fine-tuned for maximum output. It was a race against time, and there was no margin for error. If they were to survive the next onslaught, they needed to be prepared for anything. As Evans paced back and forth in the command center, his mind raced. He couldn't afford to let his crew falter. They had pulled off the impossible once before, but the odds were now stacked against them. The alien fleet was no longer underestimating them. They were coming for revenge, and they would stop at nothing until the Iron Wraith was obliterated. He glanced at his crew. The same faces that had once looked at him with uncertainty now looked to him with trust, with hope. They had seen what humanity was capable of, and they had fought alongside him with the bravery and resolve that had made Earth's reputation so feared in the galaxy. But this next battle would be different. This time, they were fighting not just for survival, but for the very future of humanity. "Lieutenant Lane," Evans said, "get me a full tactical analysis. We need to know everything about the enemy ships, their strengths, weaknesses, and tactics." Lane nodded, her fingers flying over her console. "I'm on it, Captain. I'll have the data in 5 minutes." As the seconds ticked away, Evans turned his attention to the viewport. The distant stars twinkled quietly in the void, unaware of the storm that was about to hit. He wondered how much longer Earth would remain safe, how much longer humanity could fight before the galaxy's enemies finally put an end to their story. But then he thought about the Iron Wraith, its impossible victory against 2 enemy ships, and his resolve hardened. It was no longer just about defending humanity. It was about proving that Earth would never be cowed, that they would never go back to being the underdogs. They had fought too hard, sacrificed too much, to lose now. The Iron Wraith had shown the galaxy what humanity could do, and now the universe would have no choice but to reckon with them. "Captain," Lane called out, breaking his train of thought. "I've got the data. The alien fleet consists of 4 capital ships and several dozen smaller support vessels. They've got heavy firepower, but we have an advantage. Their capital ships rely on a central command system, which means if we can disable it, we can take them out one by one." Evans nodded. "That's our target then. We disable their command ship, and we cripple their entire fleet. Prepare to execute the plan as soon as they arrive. We'll need to move fast." "Yes, sir," Lane replied. With their strategy in place, the crew continued their preparations. The Iron Wraith would not just survive the coming battle, it would dominate. The time for evasion was over. Now, humanity would fight back with everything they had. As the enemy fleet approached, the tension in the command center was palpable. The crew worked in near silence, each person focused on their task, the weight of the moment settling in. They had faced insurmountable odds before, and they had come out victorious. But this time, the stakes were higher. This time, they were fighting not just for survival, but for the future of all humankind. And as the enemy fleet came into view on the scanners, Captain Evans could only think one thing. It was time to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. The tension in the command center was electric. Every crew member stood at attention, knowing that the coming battle would decide humanity's fate. The Iron Wraith's engines hummed with power, ready to launch them into the heart of the enemy's forces. Captain Evans stared at the holographic map in front of him, his fingers hovering over the control panel, ready to give the order. The alien fleet was closing in fast, and time was running out. "All systems are online, Captain," Lieutenant Lane reported, her voice steady but laced with anticipation. "We're ready to engage." "Good," Evans replied, his voice calm but intense. "Remember the plan. Disable the command ship, and the rest of their fleet will fall apart. We've trained for this moment. Now it's time to show them what humanity can do." The crew nodded in unison. The Iron Wraith had already proven itself to be a formidable force, but now they were up against an enemy that would not hesitate to destroy them. They couldn't afford to make mistakes. The stakes were higher than ever before. On the main screen, the alien fleet came into view, a massive armada of warships, each one more formidable than anything humanity had ever faced. The Iron Wraith was small in comparison, but it had a hidden power, an unpredictable edge that the aliens had underestimated. It wasn't just a ship, it was humanity's answer to every challenge the galaxy had thrown at them. "Captain," Lieutenant Harris, the intelligence officer, spoke urgently. "The enemy has deployed a defense grid around their command ship. It's going to be hard to break through without taking heavy casualties." Evans' expression hardened. "We don't have time to waste. We take down the defenses with everything we've got. Target the command ship first, then hit the rest of their fleet with a coordinated strike." He turned to his weapons officer, Lieutenant Ramirez. "Prepare all weapons for a full barrage. I want that command ship crippled before they know what hit them." Ramirez nodded and tapped a series of buttons, sending the ship's weapon systems into action. "Ready to fire, Captain." "Execute." The Iron Wraith roared to life as its weapon systems fired in unison, unleashing a deadly storm of energy bolts and missiles. The first wave hit the alien fleet's defense grid with pinpoint accuracy, causing a massive shockwave that rippled through the enemy lines. But the aliens were no fools. They retaliated almost immediately, launching a barrage of their own weapons toward the Iron Wraith. The ship rocked under the force of the blast, but Evans' hands remained steady on the controls. "All hands, brace for impact," he ordered. "Evasive maneuvers, now." The Iron Wraith swerved to the side, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. The alien fleet wasn't going to give up easily, and the fight was about to become a deadly game of cat and mouse. "Target locked on the command ship," Ramirez called out, his voice calm under pressure. "Firing all remaining missiles." The missiles shot forward, cutting through the vacuum of space like silent, deadly arrows. They struck the alien command ship with devastating precision, causing explosions to tear through its outer hull. The alien ships surrounding it faltered, their command structure disrupted. "We've done it," Lane shouted. "The command ship is disabled. The fleet is falling apart." Evans' heart raced. It was working. The plan was succeeding, but there was no time to celebrate. The remaining alien ships were still deadly, and they were furious. Their retaliation was swift and brutal. "Prepare for another attack," Evans shouted. "Everyone, hold your ground." The Iron Wraith darted and weaved through the chaos of the battlefield, dodging incoming fire while returning devastating shots to the remaining alien ships. Every blast that struck the Iron Wraith was a reminder of how close they were to losing it all. But every counterstrike, every hit to the alien fleet, brought them one step closer to victory. "Captain," Harris called out, "we've detected reinforcements. More ships are coming in from hyperspace. We can't hold out much longer if we don't end this now." Evans' mind raced. The reinforcements were coming in fast, and they would tip the balance in the aliens' favor. He needed to make a decision, and he needed to make it fast. "Activate the super weapon," Evans ordered. "We'll take them all down in one final strike." "Captain, are you sure?" Lane asked, her voice filled with hesitation. The super weapon was a last resort, something humanity had only used in the most desperate of circumstances. But Evans knew that desperate times called for desperate measures. "Do it." The super weapon on the Iron Wraith hummed to life. The ship's engines roared with newfound power, and a surge of energy built up in its core. The entire ship seemed to vibrate with anticipation. "Prepare for maximum blast," Ramirez said, his fingers flying over the controls. With a deafening noise, the super weapon fired, a massive beam of concentrated energy that tore through the vacuum of space. It struck the alien reinforcements with unrelenting force, vaporizing entire ships in an instant. The beam continued to cut through the enemy fleet, leaving destruction in its wake. The battlefield fell silent as the last of the alien ships were reduced to debris. The Iron Wraith hovered in the center of the wreckage, battered but victorious. Evans exhaled deeply, his body finally relaxing. "We did it. The galaxy will never forget what humanity is capable of." The crew erupted into cheers, the weight of their victory sinking in. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, proving once again that humanity could not be underestimated. But as Evans looked out at the wreckage, he knew this was only the beginning. There would be more battles to fight, more enemies to face. But now, the galaxy knew that the Iron Wraith was a force to be reckoned with, and humanity would never again be seen as weak. The Iron Wraith floated in the vast emptiness of space, its hull pockmarked and scorched from the fierce battle. It was a bittersweet victory. The destruction of the alien fleet was a momentous achievement, but it had come at a cost. The crew had lost comrades, and many of the ship's systems had sustained heavy damage. Yet despite the scars and the grief, there was a quiet triumph in the air. Humanity had proven itself, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Evans stood on the bridge, gazing out at the wreckage of the alien fleet. The stars shone brightly in the distance, a reminder that, despite the horrors of war, there was still beauty in the universe. The crew members, though weary, were already working tirelessly to assess the damage, repair the ship, and mourn their fallen friends. But Evans knew that this battle was only the beginning. "Captain," Lieutenant Lane said, her voice soft but firm, "the rest of the fleet is on its way. They've received our signal. They know we've won." Evans nodded. The victory against the alien forces would have far-reaching consequences. The other fleets, human, allied species, and even the neutral factions, were all watching, waiting to see how humanity would respond. "Good," he replied, his voice steady. "It's time to show them who we are. We're not just survivors. We're conquerors. We don't bend to anyone. We set the terms now." "Understood, Captain," Lane replied with a small smile, a flicker of pride in her eyes. "We've earned it." The Iron Wraith's sensors flared as a fleet of ships emerged from hyperspace, their silhouettes cutting through the darkness. These were the reinforcements, human and allied forces who had been tracking the alien invasion and had arrived just in time to witness the tide turn. Evans gave the order, and the ship's communication systems flickered to life. The Allied fleet was waiting for orders, and Evans knew that this was the moment to cement humanity's place in the galaxy. "Attention, all fleets," Evans began, his voice strong and unwavering. "This is Captain Evans of the Iron Wraith. The battle is over. The alien invaders are no more. Humanity has proven itself not only as survivors, but as the future of this galaxy. We will no longer be underestimated. From this day forward, we will lead, we will defend, and we will expand. We are not the weak species that others once thought us to be. We are the inheritors of the stars. Prepare yourselves, for this is just the beginning." The communication lines buzzed with excitement as the fleets cheered. The galaxy had seen humanity at its most vulnerable. But now, they were about to see humanity at its most powerful. The Iron Wraith had become a symbol, a beacon of hope for those who believed in humanity's potential. With the alien fleet shattered, the galaxy's power dynamics shifted. No longer would humans be relegated to the fringes of the universe. They would take their place among the great powers. They would forge alliances, build new civilizations, and chart the stars. And if anyone dared challenge them again, they would face the wrath of the Iron Wraith and humanity's new empire. The repair work on the ship would take time, but Evans knew that the most important task lay ahead. The crew had proved themselves, and now they would lead the way into the future. As the Iron Wraith's engines hummed back to life, Evans felt a surge of determination flood through him. The galaxy was vast, and the challenges would never end. But for the first time in a long while, humanity stood at the forefront, a force to be reckoned with. He turned to his crew, his expression resolute. "Prepare for the next phase. We've taken the first step, but the real journey begins now." The crew nodded, each of them knowing the gravity of the path ahead. They had earned the right to lead, and they would do so with honor, strength, and courage. As the Iron Wraith surged forward, its engines glowing brightly against the dark backdrop of space, Evans couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, and now they had a chance to prove their place in the stars. The galaxy would remember this day, the day humanity showed its true power.